This is SciByte, episode 77 for January 15th, 2013. Everyone, and welcome to SciByte, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly science podcast, live Tuesdays and fresh Wednesdays over at jupiterbroadcasting.com. My name is Chris, and joining us every single week is our host, Heather. Hey there, Heather.
Hey there, Chris.
Hey, Heather. Happy science to you.
Happy science.
All right, what are we talking about today?
Today, we're going to take a look at analyzing your breath, large structures on a universal scale, inflatable space station modules, spacecraft updates, curiosity news, and always take a peek back into history and up in the sky this week.
Oh man, the science of what's in my breath. I can only imagine. However, I feel our first news story is a big one. All right, Miss Heather, what is our first news story?
Okay. Now, there are big things on Earth, big things, but
oh, yeah.
In the universe, there are some humongous structures, and they just got even bigger.
All right, you're talking like Jupiter, right? That's big. Jupiter's big.
No.
Like the sun. The sun's big.
No.
No?
No. It makes lots of galaxies together look significant.
What, galaxies together?
Yeah, that it makes them look small.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so quasars are like this nuclei of a galaxy. In like the early days of the universe, they had like extremely high brightness, visible across huge different distances. They could last 10 to 100 million years, which actually is very brief in the astronomical time sense. But in 1982, well, since then, we've known that quasars, these galaxy nuclei, they tend to gather together, kind of group up, and we call them large quasar groups. So it's a number of these galaxies with really bright nucleus kind of clumped together a little bit. Now, using some data from the Sloan Digital Sky Survey, they have found data in the data that you ever so love. And an international team of researchers has actually discovered a record-breaking cluster of these.
Oh.
At a mind-blowing 4 billion light years across.
Whoa, 4 billion?
With a B. Okay, so in comparison, the Milky Way is just like 100,000 light years across.
Holy smoly.
And our nearest neighbor, the Andromeda Galaxy, is 2.5 million. So a little bit bigger. Now, there's a clump. So 2.5 million.
Yeah.
Now, our two galaxies are in kind of a clump of galaxies, a local supercluster, they call them.
Okay.
Virgo. That's 100 million light years across.
Okay, well, that's pretty big.
Now, this large quasar group is 650 million light years, the normal ones.
Okay.
So normally 650 million light years across, while whole clusters of these can be, 6.5 billion or so. I mean, million, sorry.
Yeah.
Million.
Yeah, million.
Slight difference there.
Right.
Now, this specific one is kind of elongated. It's not a perfect sphere. Now, the longest dimensions, think kind of egg, from one end of the egg to the other. 4 billion light years across. So this is 1,600 times larger than the distance between Milky Way and our nearest galactic neighbor, Andromeda.
Wow.
So this thing is so big, it's kind of tweaking the whole physics ideas that we have on the universe. Like assumptions that we make, like, okay,
This thing sounds like it's the size of a universe.
It's so big, it's really messing up how we think of the universe.
Right, I can see that.
So, because let's see, the cosmological principle, it's kind of going back and assuming, okay, the universe, giant thing, probably going to be mostly homogeneous, kind of, fairly much the same everywhere you look. It's not going to be really uneven. Now, kind of based on some work by Einstein that kind of assumed that, and the whole theory of cosmology comes from those basic tenets. Now, it's never really been proven beyond a reasonable doubt, but we've made all these calculations, and they say, based on that there could absolutely be nothing bigger than 1.2 million light years across.
Oh.
And if you remember, what we were just talking about is something 1.6 billion light years across. Yeah.
Wow.
So it means like all the current mathematical descriptions of the universe, really oversimplified. We're like, now all of these really complex calculations look like they belong in an elementary school. Darn.
Wow. Gonna need new computers.
Yeah. So it's even more difficult and serious increase in the complexity of these things to be able to kind of glance, at a better idea of how everything goes around. Yeah, well, Dr. B, he says, so science lost the showcase showdown? Well, instead of over-guessing the price, we underguessed the price by way a lot.
Exactly. So you still win, right? But because nobody else guessed. Nobody else
is guessing. We're not playing against anybody else. And
like Creepy Uncle says, as far as failing goes, this is kind of like science failing in a good way.
Well, yeah. Any hypothesis or theory in science, you're going to prove one way or the other. Is it the old tenet? 3,000 failures is just proving 3,000 ways it won't work.
So one of the most...
It narrows it down.
One of the most mathematically defined discoveries of this massive object, or I guess it's a collection of objects, technically. This is just found within the data. Just the stuff we already received a long time ago, filed away in the database, and it's just been hiding in there the entire time?
Somewhat, yeah.
Wow.
Now, a lot of times they go through from this Sloan Digital Sky Survey, there's just so much data.
Right.
That, I'm looking for this picture. Say one picture of a whole galaxy. Now, I could be looking for one thing. I could be looking for stars of a specific nature at a certain age in their lifetime to try to get better research on that. And you could be looking at the gases around really, really old stars. And somebody from the chat room could be looking. There are so many different things you could be looking for. And especially when you're getting on these larger scales, you're having to sort of piece together all this data into a big sky, all together. So then you start getting larger ideas of what's going on. And if you get part away there, then you could sort of put in for some extra time to fill in the gaps of what's there.
So now where do they go?
Now they look at this a whole bunch and hit the math chalkboards a lot.
Wow.
So it's really interesting. It's like, wow, that wasn't supposed to be there. It wasn't supposed to be something that big.
Makes you wonder what else, not only what else is out there, obviously, that's the next question.
Yeah.
But what else is lurking in the data?
Yeah.
What do we already know, but we just don't know we know it?
Yeah. Well, we come across this a lot, really. Every couple of months, there's an episode, that a story that I'm like, hey, data in the data. For this Sloan Digital Sky Survey, they just took, trying to cover as much of the sky as possible. So all that, the whole purpose of that telescope is just gather as much data as possible.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's just gather everything.
Mm-hmm.
Take pictures everywhere. You're going through a town, you're just going to take a picture of everything you see. Then you'll toss it into a big box and let people look through it.
Sift through it, yeah.
Then the people who want to check out coffee houses will dig through all of them to pick up all the coffee house pictures.
It's kind of like
or
what
somebody
Google
else
does.
who wants to know how many dogs there are. They'll try to find all the dog pictures. So it's the dumping everything in the box is just that's your job. Is just to take pictures of the sky and dump it in the giant box of the data, and then everybody else comes to it and says, "What do we want to look for?"
Right.
And then they go, "Cool," or they go, "Huh. Didn't notice that before." was it? I think I've mentioned it before, but one of the science sayings that I fell across over the last year and really love is the greatest science discoveries don't so much follow the word Eureka as
Huh. Yep.
Didn't Where did that come from?
Oh, look at that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Didn't think he was going to do that.
Famous last words.
Huh.
Well,
And then go back and look at everything again.
kind of a neat discovery, and
Yeah.
one of those things too where you hear about it, you see the pictures of what the different artists think it might look like, but I don't know if I'll ever get to see something quite like it in my life, like it really see it. I want to see real pictures.
Oh, well, they're not really pictures so much as you take a picture. These quasars aren't, well, to some degree you could see the light, but you're looking at in different wavelengths.
Right.
So they could really pick up the really distant stuff.
Right.
So a lot of this astronomical data that comes from these sky surveys and everything, not quite as pretty as the, Hubble books.
Right, the actual
the
picture.
Greatest images.
It's so funny because you have the actual picture, right, which is this like green splotchy.
Yeah, that's the date, kind of a data sheet almost.
Yeah.
It is not quite as pretty as the
not as compelling, no.
Yeah, as the shinies they put from Hubble, but
right.
It has lots of science to it. There's science in those green dots.
almost looks like a petri dish.
There's science in them there dots.
Well, any other thoughts on that one?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, then I want to remind folks that if you're on the go and you have yourself one of them there Android smart devices, you can grab yourself a little SciByte and the other shows on the go. Just go over to the Google Play Store. I hate that they call it Google Play, but go to the Google Market and search for Jupiter Broadcasting, and you'll see a few apps come up. We'll talk about 2 this week. So the first one is just called Jupiter Broadcasting by Shane Kufel. And the nice thing about this, if you have a little bit newer device, you don't have to though, is it can do our live video stream as well. And it can also do the live audio stream, and it'll put them in the background. It can also go to the back catalog and pull previous episodes of shows for you, which is really cool. If you are more of an audio person and you don't really have much need for video, then we have Callisto by QWorks. What's really cool about Callisto is it ties in great with the Jupiter Radio, which throughout the week, all week long, has original content on it every single day. So even when we don't have a show live, there's generally something on Jupiter Radio. So that's something nice if you just want to have an extra station to tune into while you're on the go and hear our shows. Plus, it has the calendar. You can join the chat room, and you can contact and donate to the network all from the Callisto app, which is really nice. And it also will grab the back catalog. It can download the MP3 files or stream them without having to download, and it has a nice view for the calendar. So that's Callisto, and the other one's just called Jupiter Broadcasting. You can find both those as well as an additional app called jblive.tv, which is just the video streams in the Google Play Store. That way you can do it on your Android phone when you're on the go. How about that, Heather, huh?
Nice.
Nice. All right, well then with that filed, why don't we move on to the News Bite. News Bite. All right, what is our first story in the News Bite? Yes. News Bite story?
All right, we've got inflatable space station modules.
I love this. So, all right, I'm down with this. I could take that up there real easy, right? Super light to travel with. Doesn't take a lot of room, nice and compact. You can vacuum seal it.
Vacuum seal it. Okay, technically in space it's still vacuum sealed.
Oh wow, good point.
Even inflated.
Very good point.
Okay, so on January 11th, NASA announced that they had actually awarded a $17.8 million contract to Bigelow Aerospace to provide some new inflatable modules for the space station. Which, it's real. There's a contract. It's going to be the first privately built modules added to the space station. Now,
that's cool.
Yeah, I kind of looked at this and I'm like, wow. Now, but somebody was saying, but inflatable, that sounds dangerous.
Like it would pop.
Yeah, actually, they've had a module up in 2007. They launched it.
Okay.
It's still functioning and in orbit.
I'm sure it must be made of some tougher material, right?
Oh yeah, it's multiple layers. The outer shell of the module is soft as opposed to, a rigid exterior for the current modules. But there's so many layers of different material. In fact, one of the materials is well stronger than Kevlar. Far outranks Kevlar.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's Vectran. Twice as strong as Kevlar.
Huh.
Now, so it's all of those. And because of those many layers of this really tough material, it's actually more resistant to micrometeorites or orbital debris strikes than the rigid modules that are out there now.
No kidding.
Yeah. And so they launched one in 2007. It had video and data tracking, and it's still functioning. They sent another one up a few years ago. It's still happy. So the whole idea is they'll only be in orbit and in use for about 2 years, and then they'll kind of keep rotating out. Now, one's been there since 2007, so pretty sure that a 2-year time span is going to be perfectly fine. Now, it's they'll be used for, some science, storage, things of that nature. But on the whole, they'll already be launched by commercial cargo suppliers like SpaceX or Orbital Science Corp, or so all these kind of private organizations that are launching to the space station will be able to launch the private-built modules for the space station. So we're having a lot of privatization of space here.
So I joked when you mentioned the headline, but do they actually ship up smaller? I mean, they look like they're almost, you can't deflate them that much.
No, you'll be able to.
You can. Okay, so they travel easier then.
Yeah, they do travel easier. Well, that's partly the point, is that,
Wow, yeah.
And why they'd call it inflatable. I mean, if it had to stay rigid, it'd just be soft exteriored. But you could shrink it down to some degree and then reinflate it in space, so it travels much easier. But even, they're testing it out on the space station, but they want to make their own. They want to launch and link up a couple of these modules to create their own private space station that could be used for various people.
Wow, I never even thought about the concept that there could just be a private station up there that doesn't have any government affiliation. Yeah,
well, years ago it was, I don't remember how public-wide known it was, but there was almost a joke that they were doing the space hotel. And this was the whole idea, is launch up these inflatable modules once, Orbital Science, all these private organizations can launch up to orbit, then I'm going for the most ultimate vacation ever. I buy my seat on my to orbit airline. I get up to orbit. I go to the space hotel, this private space station of inflatable modules.
Yes.
And I rent my room there, and I have a vacation in orbit.
Yes, I'm there with you, Heather. It's gonna be a blast. You know what?
Yes.
And then after that, now I don't know if you want to do this. Maybe we'll do a show from up there. But I tell you what,
yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay. But what would really kind of, I think, be really neat is after that, or maybe before, while I wait. Have you seen those underwater hotels?
Oh, yeah.
Right. So you do. So wouldn't that be cool? Do an underwater hotel and a space hotel?
Oh, God, like last week, the extremes. One guy went to the Mariana Trench, and the other guy's diving from way up high. Yeah. We'll do even better.
Yeah, yeah.
We'll be like on a show from under the sea and then in space.
Big show. We got a big show.
Yeah.
We got a big show. Over. Beep. Well, I guess if they've had them in use since 2007, the bigger story really is, the privatization angle of it, isn't it?
Yeah, that it is. NASA has got a contract on it, so it's moving forward in that kind of a way. And it's interesting because in the last 6 months, especially, we've seen a lot of contracts go out that are actually moving forward rather quickly. Real hardware. They get a lot of contracts that's, building things and moving towards something. But these are hardware launch-ready equipment. They had the Dragon, so they can, the private company get the cargo up there. Now they have a private company that can have modules up there. So it's kind of...
And I like what Bishop Loves LSD in the chat room is saying, is that maybe it's because they're easier to transport. Maybe it's more likely structures that would be more practical to set up on Mars if we were ever going to be lucky enough to have human boots on the ground there.
They're already talking about Lunar Station on the moon.
Oh, okay.
They're saying that put up a couple of these with propulsion tanks, power units, join them together in space, fly them down to the lunar surface, and then just pile lunar dirt over them. And that even gets you protection against radiation, thermal extremes, more micrometeorite strikes.
Wow. I mean, at this point, I need a good reason why we're not already doing this. This just sounds like a slam dunk.
Well,
all in good time, I know.
Yes.
I know. All right. Well, should we shift gears to talking about my breath?
Sure.
All right. Now, we've actually covered breath previously on SciByte 46.
Yes,
where you have a breathalyzer that does more than find out how much you've had to drink.
And that was looking for various things that could screen for cancer, and there's a number of different diseases it could scan for. And now we have a new one that could detect the presence of common infectious bacteria.
Oh.
So with all the nastiness in the country going around, and around everywhere. So now they've got in your poor house.
And all of my clients.
And everyone everywhere.
It's a siege.
Yes. So this actually measures VOC, volatile organic compounds. These are particles emitted in gases that you can sort of take a profile of, and it shows you what bacteria or specifically that gives those off. So you can kind of back calculate everything. You're like, okay, this is all what we see. Now, the cold gives off this one, strep gives off this one, and you can link it back. So it's a very quick diagnosis. They actually have done it with lab mice. They infected them with a couple of different common bacteria. Things like that cause pneumonia.
Right.
Or
lung infections and things like that.
Yeah, lung infections, all these different types of things. And then they tested the animal's breath the next day by ionizing some samples and then shooting them through this mass spectrometer. They could analyze various concentrations of all of these organic compounds. Then the test was able to identify different bacterial infections as well as differentiate between the healthy and infected. So they very quickly say, nope, healthy, infected, and be able to tell different strains of something.
Huh. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so it's really fast turnaround. So you could get the exact specific strain of whatever you have. You know what it is. You can make a good, drug to that specific infection. You could, detect bacterial infections. Are they bacterial? Are they viral? Are they fungal? All these type of things that need very specific and different types of drugs to treat. And you could actually see if you have somebody that has drug resistance tuberculosis. And so there's all these different ailments and things that you could get a very quick, you go into the doctor and you have the crud, and they take a sample and you're given something generic and you go home and then it comes back 2 weeks later. It's like, yep, you had that.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, my wife and I were just talking about this because when the kids get sick, we get down to this, like, do we even bother going in? Because, I mean, sometimes, obviously, there's a yes. But when they're kind of in that phase where it's like, you know what, it might not be worth it. And the big deterrent, honestly, is the delay in any actual answer.
Yeah.
Any certainty on what action we should take. And by the time we almost get the answer, the situation's almost resolved itself almost inevitably every single time this has happened to us.
Mm-hmm.
It's frustrating.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times if someone will have something chronic, like I had a lot of chronic ear infections when I was a kid. And so the same thing would come along, and it's when it's the fourth one, and in 2 years, then we call up the doctor, and he sighs, and he sends in a script. He's like, okay, yeah, I'm pretty sure I know what this is about.
Right.
But yeah, you go in, and you're like, oh, thanks. I had a family member who went in and had swine flu and something else, both at the same time.
Oh my gosh.
She was practically comatose. And then they, went in, had the blood work, and they said, go away, don't come back. And the blood work came back later, and they're like, yeah, this is what you had. Oh, no wonder I felt so cruddy. But yeah, this kind of a thing, you get back, and you could get that quick turnaround.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of a regular infection, was it a fungal infection? I knew somebody that had there was a bunch of the crud and the flu going around, except they had a fungal infection in their lungs.
Oh, yeah, boy.
And so they had this, they were being treated and nothing would work, and they finally got some results back, and they went, oh, let's switch you to something that actually works for what you have.
Have you seen anything when you're reading about this in terms of like price or how close it is actually to market?
They're getting closer. I think they're looking towards large-scale testing. With any of these, it's so hard to say. With the medical profession, I can't read in between the lines as well as
there's a lot of
other
variables
stuff.
Getting to market. But like we do know that they've successfully tested on mice.
Yeah, they have, and that's a really good step. And this is one of those things where it's not so much a treatment, so it can move forward a little bit quicker, I think.
Yeah.
This is just, at the start, it may be sort of a parallel diagnosis. Start a wider scale, test both with this and your blood work, and then see if they are identical, and keep going through.
Yeah.
So, with all these things, they're looking for, more and more things that we'll be able to detect with breath very quickly. Will we be able to detect diabetes or cancer or so all these type of things? It's really nice that because it is such a quick turnaround. Somebody in the chat room was like, oh no, insurance, costs and stuff. But it's interesting because it's kind of a dual-edged sword. If you can get diagnosed quicker with the proper drugs, then what you have possibly won't last too long. Be able to get treated, in a timely manner that it's not going to get as serious.
Man, I'd love to see this come to the market.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder too, I honestly, my mind goes to schools. For some reason, it seems like, maybe you could put something like this in the nurse's office.
Yeah.
That, I don't know, maybe, I don't know how sanitary that would be. They'd have to come up with a, way to clean the mouthpiece or replace them, but it just seems...
Yeah, disposable, obviously.
It seems like, trying to make the decision to call the parent to come pick their kid up and things like that. If this thing could be really fast, even if it was like an hour, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, if something goes, is starting to spread around the school.
Right.
Then do you have a possibility of testing someone and then saying, haha, nice try, Johnny, go take your spelling test?
I remember when I worked for my local school district here, they always kind of walked this line of like they want to contact the parents and send the kid home, but they don't want to jump the gun on it, but they don't want to infect other kids. And, the list goes on and on. And so, just to me, school seemed like but I just know it would have massive widespread use.
Oh, yeah. There was, some schools have a simple cutoff. Mine, they didn't really care. If you ran 100 degrees, then you were sent home. Otherwise, they just kind of pointed and laughed.
That was the policy when I was in school. But then later when I became an employee, they just were changing things up.
Yeah, when my mom was an employee at a school, she caught everything under the sun and the moon.
Yeah. Yes, and I do that now because I have kids in daycare and I work with clients. So I would like to just yes, I'd be happy to work for you as an IT contractor. Could you breathe into this first, please? Yeah. Maybe, right? See, I'll buy one. Yeah. Maybe I can hook it up to like a tablet and I'm good to go. Well,
come up to the door, wave.
Just
give it inside the door. And
could you pass this around your office first and then hand it back to me, and then I'll come in if it reads out okay.
then I'll download it to my phone. And should you pass, I will do work for you, and you can pay me money. Right.
And then maybe what I could do is I could just make a marketing opportunity out of it. If they are sick, I charge them a hazard rate. I double my rate or something like that.
Hazard fee.
Yeah. See, so there's market opportunity there. You never know. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, I'm just kind of looking forward to these kind of fast, diagnostic tools.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, then. Well, then let's move on to the 2Byte News. All right, Heather, what is our first story in the 2-Byte news?
Alrighty. We've talked about it before. One-way ticket to Mars. But it's one way.
I think we talk about it all the time, to be honest.
Yes.
I mean, even one-way trips, I would at least contemplate.
Yeah, but this is like the Netherlands base. It's a nonprofit, Mars One. Their like whole purpose is to put first boots on the red planet by 2023.
Wow.
So
and so they're looking for one-way volunteers to accomplish that?
It's you go and you don't come back. That's the whole point, is they're not worried about a return trip. And they've announced some requirements on the January 8th. They'll do a whole televised global selection progress later this year. It's a nonprofit, so the whole way that they're going to fund this is through a reality show about the whole process of selecting the astronauts, training. So now, if you are at least 18 years old, you can apply to become a Mars colony pioneer. So, there's intelligence, mental and physical health, dedication to the project. Yeah, I'd say you should have some dedication if you're not planning on coming back.
I kind of want to hear what is their video.
I don't know.
Oh,
I create my own little voice.
There's no sound. I just wondered if they had some interesting tracks. So the whole thing, the trip there, the setting everything up, that'll all be a show.
Yes. 8 years of training. So they'll kind of milk whatever they can from it. I'm assuming it's going to kind of be stop and go for it. But they have, they announced this on the 8th. They already have had more than 1,000 individuals submit before even the whole process started.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
Oh, yeah, incredibly so. So,
I mean, part of, if I didn't have like a lot of things going on at the moment, that would at least go like, oh, come on, that's a history book one.
Yeah. Yeah, that.
Don't do it, Heather.
No, because SciByte,
Yeah, well, unless they let you do it from the road.
Well, there's other things, but yeah,
Skype
the right situation in the right alternate universe.
Right.
I would definitely be writing something out and being like, I already have it written. Should I send it?
Wow, that I got to tell you, is that really going to happen? Is this really going to happen? I don't think this is really going to happen. I don't
Question mark, shrug shoulders, hands in the air.
If you had to bet, though, would you bet it's going to happen?
No.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't either. I mean, I would like it to in a way, but then
they'll get.
I don't know if we want to watch people do that. It's probably not a pretty thing. It's probably a very hard thing to watch to do, and boring for large portions.
They'll send off some cargo stuff, and then they'll send 4 people, and then every 2 years, some more people get there.
Oh.
So for 2 years, it's 4 people. So, yeah, that would require a lot of good mental and physical health, so that you don't want to do anything to anyone else. And then you could run from whoever it is angry that day.
Would they try to make it entertaining? Have they talked about any of those details? Oh,
they haven't. But let's face it, reality shows. How reality are reality shows?
Well, I know, but I mean, how much can you gin up and travel to Mars? I mean, you're gonna have the 4 people fight the whole way there. I mean,
oh gosh,
it's not like they can have like people stop by for a party. They can't like go out, go to the club. I mean, what are they gonna do? They can't.
So they're gonna send up more than 4 people, and there's gonna be bets about who gets kicked out of an airlock or something. What are you talking about?
Did you see that ABC show?
No.
So ABC did a show like this. It was they were going much further out, but the premise of the TV show was it was a reality TV show, and that's how it was paying for the trip to this planet. The problem is they like run into aliens along the way.
Oh gosh.
But they don't want to. Anyways, they canceled the series. But there was I mean, to actually see this happen, I mean, I would definitely watch it. I would probably get TV service just to watch it. I don't even have TV service. I would probably get it. Although I would think they would stream this.
Yeah, for a fee. It would make sense.
Yeah. Wow.
So we'll wonder how far. They'll definitely do some selection stuff, and that'll go forward. And my guess is training might continue 6 months to a year after some sort of selection process, and then after that, goodness only knows. That's kind of at a max that I'm looking at right now.
Yeah. Well.
So, I mean,
if you hear any
global
interesting
reality
details,
TV event. Yeah, anything else that really comes out. I really kind of brought it up again because they actually have had their official announcement of requirements so far.
Right. It's yeah. Well, so Heather has links to that if you guys want to go apply. And in the meantime, Heather, watch out because our proximity sensor right there is a starship.
Hey,
it's a spacecraft update.
It is.
What do we got?
All right, a little bit closer than Mars, the moon cam. We talked about the ebb and flow, the two lunar orbiters that were measuring, the gravity from the moon.
They had like iPhones on those things. They got the vertical video syndrome going on.
They had some cameras on there that were kind of put on at the last minute for elementary and middle school students.
This is really cool.
Yeah, so
look at that.
They crashed, they crashed them into the surface. A couple of shows ago I talked about it. And the moon cam, the cameras were actually able to take more than 115,000 images as they were kind of go in.
They don't even look real. They look CG. It just looks so alien.
Yeah, well, it's from a little over 6.5 miles up.
Right, so everything's smooth and soft.
Yeah, I mean, they're not the highest resolution, but it's a great sense of kind of what you would see if you were in close orbit to the moon.
Yeah.
And it was just 3 days before the mission ended. Before they impacted into the rim of a crater. But it was really interesting. I saw the video and I was like, that is cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like to just stare at it and pretend like I'm orbiting the moon right now.
Yeah, obviously.
It's neat. That is really neat. So Heather, the iPhone vertical phone syndrome is a symptom that affects people who hold their phone vertically and then they take video on it. Actually, the picture looks just like that. It's got the black bars on the side and it's very tall, so it's just kind of funny that they also shot it like that within the.
Okay. Now I've caught up.
Yes. All right, Heather. Well, why don't we, while you're caught up, head off to Mars and do a
lift
Curiosity
off
update
of the Atlas V with Curiosity.
Touchdown confirmed. We're safe on Mars.
That's a wheel. All right, what do we got in the spacecraft? Or the Curiosity update.
Curiosity update. They have over the new year, right before the new year, should I say, the team downloaded as much data as they could possibly get from Curiosity, kind of free up all the onboard data storage for the new year, kind of spring cleaning. New Year cleaning.
Oh, okay. I see.
So they had a small little 9-foot drive to kind of get to this feature that they called Snake River. And they have 2 instruments that they're kind of using at this location. One, the dust removal. So over time, obviously, the rocks and everything on Mars gets dusty. So when it's on these rocks, it kind of hides features like little fixtures or pits or any of the fine details of the rock surface. So they selected a rock, and they have a dust removal tool. There's a link in the show notes to kind of see this specific part of it. And it's 2 spinning metallic brushes that allow the features to be exposed. So it can actually be used with the KimCam and all these kind of the more specific observational tools on the rover. So you can see, their before and after pictures of how much dust it removed, and it's actually quite a bit. You can actually see a clean surface, and then they can go up to it and possibly use the next item, the rotary percussion drill. Now, they have to search out for a suitable rock that they're actually going to test out. But this will be where they drill into a rock. So they can actually get samples from deep within a rock. Now, deep, in a sense of the word. Maybe an inch or 2 down.
Okay.
But, it's incredibly deep as far as Mars rovers go. So they can drill down into it and then transport that back to the onboard instruments on Curiosity, so they can kind of sort it out. They can say, we're going to take everything in this specific size range and dump it into this instrument, so they can get a better idea of the specific what's going on at this location. What kind of chemistry do we see there? What's the structure of the atoms, of the molecules? So get a much better idea of what's on the surface, what's beneath the surface. Maybe the dust. So we have all these different things that are coming together to get a much better idea of what's going on the whole.
Getting down and work. This now is actual legit working time. Yeah,
they're really starting to pick up the data, pick up the science. So it'll keep going like this. It's all about driving to a new location, then hunkering down and doing a whole bunch of science. So that's a lot of what Curiosity is going to do. It's going to drive some distance. Now maybe a long way. If they have a long way to drive, then they'll kind of make some pit stops along the way at some place that's vaguely interesting if they can. If you have a really long road trip, for a vacation, you've got a whole goal. Maybe you have a couple of pit stops in the middle. They're like, hey, that'd be kind of cool to see since we're driving by. So that's kind of what it's doing, and then I'll hunker down in different places and do all these instruments, instrumentation work and data. So these are kind of the first times that this dust removal and the rotary percussion drill are kind of moving forward to, kind of dust the dust off them and work.
They're dusting off the dusting tools?
Yeah, dusting off the dusting tools, getting them ready to go.
Speaking of dusting things off, Heather, I'm dusting off the time machine. Why don't you jump in here?
Let's
go.
Go
back in time. Oh, all right. A little quick short trip this week. This just takes us to 34 years ago this week in science, January 21st, 1979.
That is right. So, Pluto and Neptune. Well, Pluto used to be a planet. But Pluto has a highly elliptical orbit. So it goes around the sun every 248 years. Now, its distance from the sun kind of varies because it's more egg-shaped than perfectly round. So most of the time, it was the farthest planet from the sun. But every 497 years, there's a 20-year gap that Pluto is actually closer to the sun than Neptune.
Oh, yay, Pluto!
Yeah. Pluto gets his moment in the sun.
And during that time, Neptune is just a huge slacker.
Yeah, he becomes the farthest out then.
I feel like Neptune gets no love. We never talk about Neptune, ever.
Well, he gets the sort of love this time.
Yeah.
Because Pluto, in 1979, Pluto crossed inside of Neptune's orbit. So Neptune actually became the farthest planet from the sun.
Yeah, well, that's good. I mean, Neptune at least gets something. That's something. Yeah. You get a little, okay.
Yeah, from 1979 to 1999, Neptune was the farthest planet from the sun. So, yeah, you might accept, it might not be too hard to believe that this science astronomy geek was totally giving every science teacher a hard time. Because they say, name the planets and in order.
Oh my gosh, Heather.
Oh, yes. Pluto, Neptune. They're like, no. I'm like, yes, huh?
Uh-huh.
Go get my little book.
See? Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, lots of teachers may have learned to look at my answer and then kind of sigh and put my test off to the side because they needed me to bring up references because I was giving the correct, my fingers say in quotes, results rather than what the book said. So, and I did it. I probably should have realized, I'm like, let's just write what the book says.
And this was probably, this must have been pre-internet, so it's not like you could just go to Google and type it in and say, look, right?
Yeah. So it's like, have my little book. I'm like, here you go. I bring my resources from home.
I'm not trying to date you, but...
No. Well, I said...
That's a challenge that we did have back then in that days.
Yes.
You couldn't just look it up on the internet and prove it.
Hey, my library I had the cards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, so
that's what libraries were for.
Things. Yep. Well, you pull open the drawer.
Yeah.
But yes, Neptune became the farthest from the sun in 1979 this week.
There you go. All right, Heather. Well, let me recalibrate the SciByte 2000 so we can look up into the sky this week.
Let's go. Friday, January the 18th, we actually have first quarter moon. So it's about a quarter full. The Saturday, January 19th, about twilight, Jupiter is going to be to the far lower left of the moon.
Hey-o.
But by the time you get, go forward in the night by 8 p.m., it's going to be upper left of the moon. So it's going to be on the left, kind of starting off low and ending up higher than the moon. Then, in general, what we've got our planets doing, Venus, about a half hour before sunrise this week, is going to be kind of getting lower and lower each morning into the southeast. It's going to get harder and harder to see, closer to the horizon, but still there, about a half hour before sunrise. Mars is going to be hanging around at about the last part of sunset, low in the west to southwest. And Jupiter, go Jupiter, you're going to be able to see it after sundown. The first quote-unquote star you'll be able to see in the eastern sky. Now, below it is going to be a red star. That is a star, Aldebaran, not Mars. And then above Jupiter is the Pleiades star cluster. That if you're in a darker area, you might be able to see it. It looks more like a fuzzy ball of stars. And, it's one of those things where I think in ancient Rome, in order to see whether you went to be an archer or not, they said, how many stars can you see? And if you could count, 7 stars, then that meant you had really good eyesight. So then you got to be an archer.
That's great.
Otherwise, you're like, nope, you have bad eyesight. Go that way.
The universe's built-in eye test, brought to you by science.
Ding.
I have that handy. It's right there.
There we go. And Saturn, not to be forgotten this week, about 1 to 2 a.m. local time, is going to be rising in the east to southeast. By morning, it'll be high in the southeastern sky by dawn. So that's the best chance I'll be able to see it. And then, again, I've mentioned it before, its rings kind of have a tilt. So think of a plate, you're looking at it straight on or you tilt it up. And it's actually the highest tilt, so you can see more of them, more of the actual rings than you've been able to see in the last 7 years. So if you have a pair of binoculars or a small telescope, take a peek towards Saturn. Hopefully, if you're awake at 1 to 2 a.m. or right before sunrise, look in the east to southeast and check that out.
Wow. That's a pretty busy week.
Yeah.
A lot going on up there. All right, Heather. Well, that's our whole show, isn't it?
I think so.
Holy moly, folks. Well, here's the details. SciByte is live on Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. Pacific. And let's see, what would that be? That would be 10:30. No, that would be, 10:30 Eastern, I believe, over at jblive.tv and jblive.info for the audio stream. Because we also stream it on the Jupiter Radio that I'd mentioned earlier.
That's right.
And Heather, of course, folks can find you on Twitter throughout the week, right? You are JB_Mars_base.
That's right.
And they can also email the show, SciByte, at jupiterbroadcasting.com, or you can use the contact link at the top of the Jupiter Broadcasting website. And then, of course, you can always download us Wednesday mornings. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of SciByte. We'll see you right back here next week.